Today's video is brought to you by Grey Viking Games. Click the link in the description below to buy MTG Arena codes for cosmetics, packs, and more. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jeff and we are diving again into some Strixhaven School of Mages spoilers. We have some new cards for standard here today and some pretty sweet ones. So make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so you can be notified of new videos coming out for this stuff and for new contents coming out once Strixhaven finally drops. And let's go and dive right into this. So first off, we have Elite Spellbinder, and this is the card I think I'm the most excited for from these ones coming out today. So 3 mana human cleric, 3/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. So kind of discard in white. It's the first, like, I'm not sure if there's any other discard from white ever. Maybe like some with like restore balance or things like that cause them to reduce their hand size or whatever. But in general, this is just straight up play this out and you don't get that card. Well, you kind of do, but it costs 2 more to cast. The way this reads as well, though, is even if Elite Spellbinder goes away, it still costs 2 more to cast. They still are able to cast it. So really interesting card in general. We actually get some discard in mono white, which means on turn 3, you can play this out as a flyer and discard their removal spell, their board wipe, whatever, which means this kind of can go into the mono white weenie decks where you could discard and it cost more to cast, but just a little bit later. You can play this out with like Thalia or other cards that also make things cost a little bit more to cast. So you can end up playing like a little bit like a taxes style of play with this to make just everything cost a lot more to cast. And so I'm in between on whether or not this is actually good, but it's new, it's different. We don't get to see mono white cards having discard very often, and so I'm really stoked, excited about that, to see that they are adding in some new mechanics into white cards. Thank goodness, finally it's happening. I mean, white has always been powerful, it's still good at what it does, but it's just cool that we're getting cards that are interesting to play with in other formats, other things. Drannith Magistrate, I think, is also in the format. Also stops anything that's being played from exile or outside of opponent's hand or something like that. Could also be played with this as just a hard discard card. I'm not sure if that would necessarily make it worthwhile, because as soon as it's gone, they can still play it or whatever. And so there's some ways you can go with this to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm not sure if they're worthwhile. So I'm not sure this is necessarily an actual good, powerful, like playable card in Constructed, especially because the 3-drop slot is, is really hard to kind of fill with something better. This doesn't have high toughness, so it doesn't work with the other clerics that are out there. It might be good in like a human's tempo deck. I'm not really sure if it's better than like Skyclave Mentor or Skyclave Apparition, which is good removal, but it's discard in white, so that we're going to take what we get. All right, so moving on to some of the other stuff. Venerable Warsinger, 3 mana, 3/3 with Vigilance and Trample, Spirit Cleric. Whenever Venerable Warsinger deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less. It's so hard to not say you convert mana cost. So return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard, where X is the amount of damage that it dealt to that player. So pretty sweet stuff. So if it gets in for damage, we can return a converted mana cost 3. If we end up giving this more power every single turn, somehow if we give more power with let's say Halvar's thing or Maul the Skyclaves or things that are being played quite a bit right now with Vigilance and Trample, that'd be pretty good to put stuff like that onto it, right? Yeah, so anything with Double Strike would work really well with this. We've already seen that be really powerful. Having Vigilance here is great, and then we can just keep returning creatures cards back from the graveyard over and over again with Venerable Warsinger. Even if it gets like chump blocked a little bit, but gets in for 1 or 2 points of damage, we still might be able to get something out of it, even if it ends up dying in the combat. So Venerable Warsinger, I think, is actually a really powerful card. I'm not sure what deck it goes into in standard at the moment, because it's not a warrior. I feel like this would fit really well into the warriors deck, wanting to play lots of equipment stuff and everything like that. I'm not sure if it not being a warrior stops it from going into that deck, but it's in the Lorehold colors. So it's still really good. I think this is a pretty powerful card. It's definitely going to see play on my channel, even if it's not necessarily going to be competitive. All right, so moving on to the next one, Rip Apart. Lorehold colors again, sorcery, 2 mana, choose 1. Rip Apart deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. So This is basically a braid, but it's not instant speed, but it can hit enchantments as well. And it can also hit planeswalkers as well. And so I'm not sure exactly if this becomes better than a braid. The versatility is awesome. I think it definitely will see play if you're playing, Jeskai or Lorehold Colors or whatever. But so overall, I think this is definitely a really good card. A braid saw tons of play, but it also is instant speed, and that's a big deal. At least I'm remembering a braid to be instant speed. And so having this not be instant speed means that it's probably not going to see as much play, just because of that. At the same time, though, I think that the versatility on this, that there are lots of artifacts, enchantments. There's still plenty of enchantments from Theros Beyond Death that are whatever that one, Theros. That set is still having lots of enchantment creatures that you can hit with this. And being able to hit creatures and planeswalkers. This hits everything besides the opponent's face, basically. So it's still good. All right, moving on. So then we got a bunch of common cards here. These ones actually spoiled a couple days ago, but there was just like 5 common cards that I didn't feel like were enough to put into a normal deck, but we're going to go into them here. And actually, a lot of these ones I don't think I even read through all the way before, so this is my first time diving into them. Field Trip, 3 mana sorcery. Search your library for a basic forest card, put that onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library, and then you get to learn. So Cultivate lets you do this, go grab a basic land. It doesn't have to just be forest, but then also get you 1 extra card put into your hand. Sometimes that's great, but sometimes you're not needing more lands in the late game, or this comes up where Learn lets you go grab lesson spells, which can sometimes be really awesome, even though we haven't seen lesson spells be super powerful just yet, but it's an extra card rather than just a land. So does this card actually become better? Field Trip, which by the way, I love we're going on a field trip. Woohoo! Yeah, it's a great card name. I like it. But then we also get these different lesson spells, which come in here, and like the new one here, Environmental Sciences. 2 mana, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle, and you gain 2 life. So if you're, you can kind of finish off the rest of the Cultivate side of things, but gain 2 life while you're at it as well. That's a lot worse than just playing Cultivate with that. But there's other lessons cards that we've seen already that could just be really good in whatever situation you're in. And so then maybe Learning is better than that. You can also just discard a card to draw a card, which maybe you already have tons of lands, or you want to find another land with this. You can eventually so this is like it's probably pretty close to almost a Cultivate already, or it's could be better depending on lesson cards, that kind of stuff. I'm not really sure where to put this one. Like the Learn mechanic, I'm still waiting to see more lesson cards to see if they're actually worthwhile. Lesson cards like this, sure. I mean, if you need a bit more basic lands, this can be really nice to play just as a 2-off. Like this actually might see a pretty good amount of sideboard, just because for 2 mana I can gain 2 life, and I can make sure that I'm getting lands out of the deck and making my land drops every turn. Like decks are fine with doing that. Like if I get to Learn, sure, I'll do that instead of discarding and drawing a card, maybe, because yeah, why not? So I don't know. I think that some lesson cards can be really good. The fact that that's 2 chromatic, only 2 mana value versus other ones, I think is pretty good. Guiding Voice. 1 mana sorcery, put a +1/+1 counter target creature, and then you get to Learn. Again, I'm not sure how good Learn is. You get to target a creature. It's not at instant speed. If this was instant speed, I think this would actually be a decent card, just because Orvar's there, all that kind of stuff. You get to draw a card basically and put a counter to something for 1 mana. Pretty good stuff. Doing that at sorcery speed, yeah, I guess it could be good. It depends on how good the lesson cards are. We still haven't seen lesson cards besides the one in black there's the other ones we found in black. There was one that created Pest for 3 mana. Another one that was an X spell that can remove or like either bring back a planeswalker or remove planeswalkers. If you're playing like a Kaya deck, with a bunch of small creatures in the early game with Kaya on the top end, maybe this is worthwhile. I really don't know. It all comes down to how good lesson cards are, and I still haven't seen one that makes it feel like, okay, these are really good. I'm probably going to say this a lot today because there's a lot of Learn cards here. 6 mana sorcery, exile target creature, exile to 1 target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and then you get to Learn. Yeah, this is sorcery for a reason. It's exiling and drawing a cards. This is pretty decent limited card because you can play it in a bunch of different decks because it's both black and white. So you can fit it into multitude of different decks. So I think this is a really powerful limited card, even being at 6 mana. Still, you just are exiling a creature and you're getting rid of stuff that might be coming back from the graveyard, which we already have seen that there's some ways that people can be playing stuff from graveyards with instant sorceries in limited, whatever, with this format. So I think this is more of a limited card, with the learn being pretty interesting. And I do think that learn in limited will be pretty awesome, because you can just throw all your lesson cards in there, have a few different learn spells, and you actually have reasons to be putting some other cards into your sideboard, which makes limited, like, honestly, this will be a really fun limited environment, I think, with this deck. So I'm set. I think it'll be fun. And then we got Study Break, 2 mana, instant speed, tap up to 2 target creatures, learn. Again, I don't know how powerful the learn side of things is. In general, card advantage is worthwhile. The lesson cards have been a little bit underwhelming. At the same time, though, there have been ones that are just like exile target creature. Even if it's 5 mana, the fact that you get a card that says do a thing is still really, really good. So being able to slow them down, tap them down for a turn like that actually is pretty decent in general, just to slow things down if you need them to. You could even use this with, like, even with Magda, and tap your own creatures down to gain some treasures, and then get the learn card to go get something else to do something cool. I don't know. Anyway, Study Break is interesting as well. Enthusiastic Study. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but learn, I'm not sure how good it is. 3 mana, target creature gets +3/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Sweet. I actually, this one I think can actually see play. It's instant speed, giving +3/+1 and getting trample to stuff is good. I think Gruul is needing something that just gives trample. The fact that this gives +3 as well. Collision Colossus saw quite a bit of play, being in Gruul, which was 2 mana. This being 3 mana, doing it at instant speed, giving a good buff plus trample, and then also having the learn ability. This one I think could actually see quite a bit of play. I'm not sure if it'll be anything competitive, but could definitely see play in like a Gruul aggro type deck. Like the Gruul Adventures or something. The biggest issue with Gruul Adventures is that a lot of their beefier dudes don't have a way to get through, and so they're relying on Embercleave to do that. And this might just be an extra copy of the Embercleave effect that maybe, sometimes is a little bit easier to pull off than Embercleave if in the early games. And so maybe like a 1 or 2 of in that deck. I'm not really sure. And that's it, guys. That brings us to the end. I know I said the same thing a bunch of times. It really depends on how good the learn mechanic is, and that all comes down to how powerful the lesson cards are. It's really weird. I don't think I've ever had to second guess myself so much on a mechanic, because you can kind of play it through in your head, but really it comes down to how good are the lesson cards. If the lesson cards are busted, and I do like there are a lot of these colorless lesson cards where I think Environmental Sciences is one of the ones that goes into every single deck as a 2 to 4 of, where the fact that it just gains you life already, it's just like, okay, if it's going to be a free card in my hand, sweet. Every once in a while, I just need to be able to gain some life. I will do it. Fine. If I'm going to play anything with learn in it. And like, even if you have like 4 cards that get learn, we saw that kind of same type of thing with like Karn, where you play 4 copies of Karn, even if you only ever get to look in your sideboard a couple times. But if you have a certain amount of cards that are powerful and useful for any situation that deal with stuff, yeah, even if it's a little bit more expensive or whatever, it still is nice to have, okay, I'm grabbing the best card for the situation, even if it's a little bit more expensive or not, it's an artifact instead of being something else, like limited resources. I think these lesson cards can either be really busted or interesting, or they're going to be a little bit weaker. They are all priced a little bit more expensively. I think Environmental Sciences is the first one that I feel like is a pretty fair costed one. For the small effect that it does. I don't think I'd ever play this just in like a main deck, unless I was playing a deck that was running like 5 colors and just wanted to make sure I was hitting my land drops. This actually be great in that deck, even if in the main deck, because it's colorless. That means no matter what, if I have 2 lands, I can find another land of a different color. So 5 color decks actually probably want this quite a bit because it's good. And so anyway, Environmental Science is probably my favorite of the colorless lands. All the learn cards can go grab stuff like this. I'm definitely excited to find more of the lesson cards and see how good they do. All right, so that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have more stuff coming to you guys, I think every day this next week. Typically on the weekends, it's a little bit more light. So starting tomorrow, I'm expecting a really big day of spoilers with the standard set. Standard cards coming out, and dude, I'm stoked. I love spoiler season. I hope you guys enjoy it too. If you do, I already said it. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.